Hi parents. I've been getting a lot of questions from you asking about the end of course test for geology. And I have here on my screen a piece of paper explaining to us educators the understanding of the end of course test, because it's hard for us to understand even sometimes, and the way that they describe it on here is sometimes even harder for us to understand. So I'm going to try to summarize it in terms that anybody could understand, even your kids if they were watching. So what I'm going to start with is the basically the purposes of this test, and they have two purposes, and they say that these purposes are based on the 1984 and 1989 legislation in North Carolina into course tests for standardized testing. The first purpose says that these tests provide an accurate measurement of individual knowledge and skills specified in the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. This just means that these tests are meant to check and see if us as teachers are teaching your children the correct content and teaching it in a correct manner that's easier to understand for all children. Um, it also measures your students' comprehension of the subject. So if they understand the subject, then they're supposed to do good on this test according to this piece of paper right here. The second purpose is to provide an accurate measurement of knowledge and skills attained by groups of students for school systems, and school accountability. So that what that means is that we're going to take your students' scores, and they'll be anonymous. They won't be posted up anywhere except for I guess in our records. And we're going to compare them to students within their school system. If you live in a multiple school system area, you test it against that, like county's school system, and to schools across the state to see that if schools are following the standard course of study correctly. And if not, there may need to be some intervention. Some schools may need to be held accountable. And it's just it doesn't end well for schools that don't follow the standard course of study. But a lot of you had questions about the test scoring, and you didn't understand really what percentiles were, and then what the scale meant, and what achievement levels were. Well, those are the three ways that these tests score your children's knowledge. It's okay for scale scores. This is strictly how your student does in this subject. It is seeing if they understood the subject, or if they didn't. And these questions, like for instance, if I'm teaching geology in North Carolina, and across North Carolina, your students are taking this geology class taught by different teachers, then these questions are all going to be the same no matter where your student is, as long as they're within the state of North Carolina. They are based on the essential standards and the standard core, the core standards that were put up by the federal government. um, and they are supposed to measure your students' knowledge of the subject. The second way that we we score these standardized tests are percentiles. And now percentiles are hard to understand, as they say, for instance, they may say that your student is in the 75th percentile. This means that of all the students in either the school system, or the state, your student has scored in the top 25th percent, meaning that they have done better than 75% of all the other students. So if you see this on your student's test, it's really just comparing where your student is compared to other students in the state, the school, and the school system. It doesn't really test their knowledge of the subject. It's really just seeing where your student is. Okay, for achievement levels, there are 4 levels. The first level is basically saying, look, your student made level 1 in achievement on this test. He may need to be, he/she may need to be either held back or they may need to retake this course just so that they can understand this subject matter better in the future. Level 2 means that your student may understand the course, but their knowledge seems to be inconsistent. They do really well with one part of the subject, but not so well in another part. So we're not for sure if they should move on to take the higher level course in this subject. That means that they could be held back or they could not be. We won't recommend one or the other. We just need to let you know as parents that they may not be able to succeed in the higher level just because their scores are so inconsistent in this lower level. Level 3, if your student made it into the level 3 achievement class, that means, hey, they passed, they seem to know the they seem to know the subject matter in a fairly good way, and we think as their teachers that they will be able to succeed in the higher levels. Uh, they may have fallen off in one small way or the other, but overall, they did really good and they passed. Level 4 means without a shadow of a doubt that this child has made it passed with flying colors through this section, and they deserve to go on to the next level. We would not recommend holding them back or retaking the course. In fact, we would highly discourage it because they did so well the first time around. Anyway, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. You have my email. I gave it to you at the open house. And that is it. Have a nice day.